Welcome to this comprehensive guide on refreshing your Atari 2600 Wico Command Control joystick. The Wico Command Control is the gold standard aftermarket joystick for the Atari 2600. Restoring your Wico joystick not only brings back nostalgic memories, but also ensures you have a reliable controller for your Atari 2600. First, we need to take the joystick apart. Let's get started with the disassembly process. You'll need a few basic tools for this project. I'll go over what you need. The main thing that you're going to need is rubbing alcohol, Phillips screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and a needle nose pliers or some other type of pliers. You're going to want to remove all 4 screws from the bottom. That's the easy part of this whole thing. Take them out, set them aside. The internal disassembly is a little trickier, but I'll try to guide you through this. You want to get to this grommet. This is the first part. So move all of the little switches. These are the most delicate part of this process. Move the switches to the side, and you're going to have to take this little clip off here, and this is the hardest part of it all. You have to be careful. I tried using a needle nose pliers to get that thing off. It doesn't work. Use a flathead. That's the best way. Be careful. You don't want to bend any of those clips. Okay. Once you get that thing off, that clip off, there's a spring that keeps this little spacer in place. Note the direction that the spacer goes on, because you're going to have to reassemble this. Once you get that spacer out, you're going to have to get that little top part of the casing off the grommet, and you're going to use a little flathead to do that. I mark it so I know which direction it goes in. There's a spring that's underneath that, and you'll see that the joystick actually slipped out. Then there's a washer, and there is the grommet. This is the part that goes bad on these controllers. If there's something that you would need to replace ever on these controllers, it is that grommet. By the way, that's another little spacer there. It's a little washer that's made out of plastic. And the grommet comes out, you're just going to push it out. And this is, I think, an important thing to do is to mark which direction that whole assembly goes in. The only reason I do that is because the grommet tends to favor one direction over the other. Now, here's the grommet. You're going to see some of these are going to be really in bad shape. Others are still going to be perfect and not need replacement. This one's just a little bit offset, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to replace it because the rubber is not broken. Now it's time for cleaning. I'm not going to show you all of the components to clean, but I do clean them all. I use rubbing alcohol. It's probably the safest thing to use on most of the components. Now, I tend to use just soap and water on the plastics because rubbing alcohol will dry out the plastics. But if you really have some, hardened schmutz on there, you might need a little bit of rubbing alcohol. It's not going to hurt the plastic too much. I would not ever, though, use rubbing alcohol on the rubber grommet. Keep that rubbing alcohol, and actually it's isopropyl alcohol. That's about 91%. In order to preserve the grommet, we're going to lubricate it. Now I haven't come across anyone else doing this or suggesting doing this, but if you have taken apart your joystick and you see your rubber grommet's in great shape, why not keep it in great shape? And what's one thing that can preserve a rubber grommet better than anything is some silicone lubrication. Putting this on the rubber grommet will keep it from degrading if it hasn't already. If there's no cracks, let's keep it that way. These things are hard to replace and they're hard to come by. With all the cleaning done, it's time to put the Wico Command Control back together. Now, you're going to see here, I'm going to try to do this in reverse so everybody can see it. Delicately put the plastic washer back in. After you get that back in, I tend to put the grommet in. Make sure you put the grommet in the case in the correct direction. It just drops in there. I put everything in lined up the way that I had it. Once it's in there, you may want to just, if there's anything else that needs a little bit of cleaning, take a look, but what I usually do is I'll put this back in place, and then I'll clean the contacts on all of these little switches. And cleaning the contacts is a pretty easy and straightforward thing. All you're going to be doing is using some rubbing alcohol on each of the contacts. So once that's in place, get your rubbing alcohol, get your cotton swabs, and before we reassemble the whole thing, we'll do some cleaning of these contacts. Again, putting this back together the way that you want it to fit. It's just right, it's just snug. Put this through. Remember, now you need the spring. And then over that, make sure you put that in the right direction, the spacer. And then getting the clip on is easier, I think, than getting it off. You just line it up, and then you squeeze it on with the needle nose pliers. But again, just be careful when you do this that you don't bend any of these. The button reassembly is pretty straightforward. Just sliding it through the joystick. It's got that little spring you got to put on there again. Now this is something I should have mentioned in the beginning. You have to pop that thing off when you disassemble it, and you have to be incredibly careful about that you don't break that, because that's one of the easiest things to break on here, and putting it on can also be equally as harrowing. So here's cleaning. Sorry, my hand's getting away in a lot of the shot here, but all I'm doing is taking and using just rubbing alcohol in the inside of each of these contacts to get any of the oxidization out of there. It's going to make for a more responsive joystick, so you might as well do this. It's always going to be oxidizing, it's always going to be oxidized, but just cleaning it off with some alcohol will make it a little bit more responsive in the meantime. So I hope this guide helped you refresh your Wico Command Control joystick. I haven't made one of these videos before, so cut me some slack, please. I'll respond to any questions because I know I missed some things in this. All right, take care.